Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more turkey patterning, and today we've got a little comparison between two chokes with the same load side by side to see which one might be better or if they're both very good options, because they're both stock chokes that would have come originally in this setup depending on what year or maybe what specific model or version or anything of this shotgun that you would buy. So I'm definitely looking forward to comparing these side by side, since a lot of you guys want to see them both shot right next to each other to see what the difference actually is. But for the setup that we've got out here today, I brought out the Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag, and for the chokes that we've got, first up we have the stock factory flush mounted turkey full choke is what they call it. This one is the original one with my 835. It's a 710 constriction, and if you don't know, these 835s are overbored to a 10 gauge bore size, so that 710 constriction is pretty much the equivalent of an extra full, and we've seen some very nice results with it for being a factory stock flush choke. It typically gives us a very nice turkey pattern to work with. And for the choke we're going to be comparing it to, I brought out this guy. This is also a stock factory original Mossberg turkey choke, but it's the Ulti-Full 695 choke. As you can see, it's their extended choke. So both of these would have come stock in different Mossberg 835s, and there is a little bit of a choke constriction difference, 695 versus 710. So is there actually going to be very much pattern difference between this extended stock choke versus the flush stock choke? I don't know. It's definitely going to be pretty interesting to see. And for the shells we're going to be running for today's comparison, I brought out probably the most standard across the board popular lead load out there, the Longbeard XR 3-inch 1 7/8 ounce load of 5s. And if you're hunting with a lead turkey shell, chances are it's probably these. Now, if you guys want to see a TSS comparison the same way we do this, then by all means let me know that down in the comments as well, because that could also be very interesting. Either way, we know we've got a good shell, we know we've got a good setup, and we know we have two chokes that have performed good on their own. So what's the comparison going to be between the stock flush versus stock extended with these Longbeards? So as for today's test, everything is going to be run the same as usual for a turkey pattern test. I've got the turkey papers set up at 40 yards, and I've got the chronograph so we can get our velocity. So with this one, we'll start out with the stock 710 flush choke, then we'll scoot over and put the stock 695 extended choke in and see what that one can do. I don't know that there's going to be a whole big difference between these two, but we don't know until we try it. So let's head over here and take these two shots and kind of see if there's some magical difference between the two of them or not. All right, so let's take a peek at our velocities real quick. And the box claim was 1,050 on those particular Longbeards. So from the first shot out of the flush 710 choke, gave us 1,045. So we're pretty well right on the money with that as far as our velocity goes. Now, what's interesting is that extended choke gave us 1,123 for velocity. And I kind of think that might be a little bit higher than the natural variation of what these shells typically give us. So did that extra half inch or so of choke extend our barrel length enough to squeeze just a tiny bit more velocity out of it? I definitely think it's a possibility. I don't know. Definitely something pretty interesting though. Either way, I'd say we're looking perfectly fine for velocity up here. But what did our patterns actually show us down at 40 yards? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and these are our two targets, kind of side by side here. The one on the left is from the flush 710 choke, the one on the right is from the extended 695, and we honestly have a very similar result from both patterns. But we will move over to the left and start with a close-up look from the flush choke, and as you can see here, it looks very much like a pretty nice turkey pattern. We were just a touch off to the right, but we were in the exact same spot on both patterns. Now, our central 10 to 12 inch circle or so here is nice and hot. It's dense. It's covered with pellets. There's really not any kind of big voids or strings or anything in there. If that was centered up a little better, that would absolutely be devastating. So yeah, a very usable turkey pattern there all day long. Now, around the edges, we do see a few flyers and a little bit of stringy stuff over there off the left. Now these are a lead load, so that's not entirely surprising, but generally what I'm looking at in this pattern is the main 80% of the pattern that's in, say, a 15-inch circle right over there in front of that bird's head. You have a pretty nice, relatively uniform spread without any kind of big voids or anything like that in there. It might not be baseball tight in the core, but looks very nice with a handful of flyers and stuff around the edges. So let's move over and take a look at the extended choke for comparison. All right, so here is our extended 695 choke, and right off the bat, the central 10 inches or so of that pattern just in front of that bird's head gives us a very nice, very usable core. No doubt that that would absolutely hammer a bird at 40 yards. But if we look at the entire pattern, I think we have a slightly hotter core, or at least smaller core area. Not necessarily more pellets in it, but a smaller, more condensed core in this pattern. But around the edges, we definitely have a little bit more of a broad and stringy pattern, especially off that top right corner. At the end of the day, this is still a very usable turkey pattern, but there is a difference here. A little bit smaller of a core area with, I think, more pellets outside of that core area compared to what we saw with the flush 710. So looking at these two side by side, I think the 710 over on the left is a little bit more broad as far as the central core area goes, but I think the 695 over on the right has more flyers and stringy stuff around the edges than the flush does. So really, is there a big difference in the grand scheme of things here? No, not really. And to be honest with you, you could take either one out and have a very nice performing turkey setup. Now, if I was to get nitpicky and pick one for myself, I would probably prefer the one over on the left, which is the flush 710 choke. It might not have quite as small of a core, but I think I like the spread of pellets a little bit more over there on that choke than on the right extended choke. But at the end of the day, Mossberg seems to know what they're doing with their stock turkey chokes, and this is kind of about what I expected to see. Not a massive difference, and both of them are very usable combinations, that's for sure. Okay, here are your two wads out of those shells. The one on your left over here is the one from the flush 710 choke. The one on the right is from the extended 695. And there's really not a whole lot of difference between them. The one on the right through the extended choke did have that little bit of a tear in one petal, which is not entirely uncommon for these longbeard wads. The flush choke honestly kind of looks like it had a little bit more constriction up here at the very top, but I know it doesn't based on measuring it. So maybe it was just a little bit more dirty or something than the extended choke was. Either way, definitely nothing out of the ordinary or nothing I'd be too concerned with, and they both look very much normal for what we've seen out of these longbeard shells. All right, y'all. Well, what did you think about that result right there? And which one do you guys prefer? Do you prefer this flush choke over here, or do you prefer the extended choke over on this side? Either one is a very nice and very usable turkey pattern that could get you a bird at 40 yards without a question. But I do think we saw a little bit of a smaller core with the extended choke, with more of the pellets surrounding it than we did over here on this side with the flush choke. I think the flush choke might have a little bit more of an even core with more pellets in a little bit larger size and maybe less around the edges. So really, take your pick. If I had to really get nitpicky, I would probably choose this flush choke over here on this side, but to be honest with you, either one is more than good enough. So overall, whether or not your Mossberg has the flush choke or the extended choke, I don't think it really makes a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, at least with a longbeard load of fives. So I guess leave your thoughts in the comments. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested either one of those chokes? And if so, what one do you prefer? Or what one did your Mossberg come with, or whatever the case might be? And is there one that you would actually take out over the other, or would you be happy with either pattern? And is there another shell or maybe a TSS load or something that you might want to see us do the same comparison with to see if there's a bigger difference in that? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. I guess at the end of the day, both are very usable. There's not really a whole lot wrong with either one of them, and both would absolutely crush a bird out at 40 yards. So I don't think you can really go wrong regardless of which choke your gun came with. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.